Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're getting right into our third segment of the night, talking about the top potential free agents for this offseason here. One of them is playing in this series that we're watching right now between the Oilers and the Panthers. It is the Florida Panthers' Sam Reinhart. I only think that talks aren't happening for Sam Reinhart because they are in the midst of a Stanley Cup Final run. I truly do believe that the Florida Panthers will. Sam Reinhart led that team in points this season. There's no way they let him walk for free. He's coming off of a $6.5 million contract. He'll probably make in the neighborhood north of $8 to $9 million in his next re-sign contract, but I do think it will be with the Florida Panthers for Sam Reinhart. But just going down the list from highest points for these free agents, next up would be Steven Stamkos. He was a 40 goal scorer this season. Sam Reinhart had 57 goals this season. Absolutely ridiculous season from Sam Reinhart, coming really out of nowhere, but for Steven Stamkos, it is a 81-point season, 40 goal scorer from the former first overall draft pick back in 2008. Steven Stamkos has had a very fantastic career with the Tampa Bay Lightning. However, he's 34. So that's the risk that you're taking by signing Steven Stamkos here. He's coming off of an $8.5 million cap. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have been reluctant to have talks with him. I saw reports that that Steven Stamkos' camp is very unhappy with the lack of contract talks with Steven Stamkos and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So there is a chance that he does walk. Of course, there was, I think it was 2018 offseason, that Steven Stamkos was a pending free agent, and it looked like he wasn't going to sign, and it looked like the Toronto Maple Leafs were maybe going to make a play for him, and then he ended up going back to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So we've seen this story before. However, I think it is different this time. He is 31 or 34 years old here, coming to kind of the tail end of his career. So we'll see if he does move on from the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we'll see where he goes, as I cannot predict if he were to move on from the Tampa Bay Lightning, where he would go, or even who would want him. I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs would be in play for him this time coming around. Maybe the Hurricanes, although they're in a little bit of cap trouble this offseason. Maybe a team like the Ottawa Senators would make sense for Steven Stamkos. Maybe a Dallas Stars if they have the cap space. Maybe a Minnesota Wild makes a little bit of sense. But I think that really he could go kind of anywhere that has money for him. So we'll see. The next guy is Jake Gensel from the Carolina Hurricanes. I did see that him and his camp loved Carolina and loved kind of the culture they had going around there, and he wants to go back to the Hurricanes. So albeit the Hurricanes wanting him back, he will be a Carolina Hurricane next season. Of course, he was dealt at the deadline by the Pittsburgh Penguins, where he played most of his career, or all of his career up to this point at. So we'll see where Jake Gensel goes, but it seems like he wants to go back to Carolina. The 77 points in 67 games played this past season, very impressive in a contract year. Coming off of a $6 million contract, you could expect that to go up. I think he'll be around $7.5 million is where he would sign at, but you don't really know this stuff until the market goes, and we'll see. Next guy, RFA Lucas Raymond. Of course, that will be tenured by the Detroit Red Wings, and nothing will come from that. So Lucas Raymond won't really be on the market. But the next guy is very interesting, Jonathan Marchessault. I think this guy could be the talk of the town for the free agency market. This guy, a fantastic goal scorer for the Vegas Golden Knights, really helped them in a lot of their cup runs, or in their cup run in 2023 and 2018. Big part of that franchise has been Jonathan Marchessault. We'll see what contract he gets. He's 33 years old. The problem with free agency is the problem with free agency in all sports is you're kind of overpaying for a guy that, one, the other teams didn't think that was worth the contract, and two, it's always going to be older guys, because in every sport you are under team control for the first few years of your career. So really, no guy under the age of 27 or 28 is going to be really available for guys. But then there's guys like Martin Necas, who is an RFA for the Carolina Hurricanes, who the right winger for the Hurricanes can definitely, he's trying to force a trade, trying to move somewhere. I talked about how him for Line could make sense for the Columbus Blue Jackets. That could be a good deal. But a lot of these guys in free agency are RFAs or older UFAs, and Jonathan Marchessault fits in that older UFA guy, coming off of a $5 million contract though, so if he wants around that neighborhood again, I think so many teams will be lining at the door to try to sign him, because he is a fantastic player, especially for that money. Joe Pavelski is a pending UFA, but he is retired, so he won't be there. Seth Jarvis is a pending RFA. He'll get re-signed by the Hurricanes if they're able to figure out their cap situation. Matt Duchene could be a very interesting one. 65 points in 80 games played this season. Kind of revitalized his career a little bit with the Dallas Stars. Of course, going all the way to the Western Conference Finals with them this past season. Very impressive one he had in 2023 and 2024 for the Dallas Stars. He's 33 years old again, but he's a great center. He's a good two-way guy still at this point of his career. A guy that a lot of teams are going to look to try to pick up. He might be another one. Him and Jonathan Marchessault could be two guys that really move people in this free agency. And I think Matt Duchene will want a lot of money. He's coming off of a $3 million contract, but that's after a couple of pretty disappointing years. This year, 65 points. He played at .81 points per game ratio. This guy could be a guy that warrants a lot of money in free agency. Matt Duchene could be a guy that I would look out for. Maybe if you're a middle-of-the-road team trying to kind of make a push, getting a second-line center could be huge for them. Maybe a team like the Islanders could go out and get him. I think that would make a little bit of sense. Winnipeg Jets could go out and get him. That might make a little bit of sense. The Vancouver Canucks, if they have money, can go out and get him. So a lot of teams that are trying to make a little bit of a push here to become cup contenders can add that guy. Put him on the second line, third line, and he would, be very, very vital for a franchise. You also got guys like Sean Monahan from the Winnipeg Jets, who can play all over the ice and be a big role coming up in free agency. He only was at $2 million. That's going to go way up. He's going to probably ask for 6.5. 59 points in 83 games played. Very impressive what Sean Monahan did this past year, especially in a contract year. Jonathan Drouin from the Colorado Avalanche. This guy is the one that took over for Valeri Nichushkin when he had to leave in the Stanley Cup playoffs this past year on that first line, and he played pretty well. He could definitely be a guy that warrants a lot of money. Very skilled forward, puts up a lot of goals on the right team. We'll see where Jonathan Drouin goes. I think that's one of the more interesting ones. And then we finally get to our biggest defensive free agency guy. It's Shane Gostisbehere from the Detroit Red Wings. 56 points in 81 games played. He was a -16, however. He made $4.5 million last year. A guy like Shane Gostisbehere could warrant a good amount of money, so it would be very interesting to see what he gets as probably the top defenseman in this free agency market. Of course, you also have Philip Hronek, who could get that spot. Brady Shea, who could be the top defensive guy. I'm not seeing Brandon Montour maybe if he does go from the Florida Panthers, but there are a lot of Florida Panthers on this list, but I do believe that they will just be re-signed by the Florida Panthers when the Cup run finishes up, as they do have a good amount of money going into this offseason here. Maybe a guy like OEL does walk for them, though, who only 32 points in 80 games played. I think that's a guy that you're willing to kind of give up. Other guys that are big name free agents here: Warren Fogle, Anthony Duclair could be a big name. Tyler Bertuzzi, Anthony Mantha from the Vegas Golden Knights could be a big guy. I think Elias Lindholm could get a lot of money. Of course, he was on that He was on that Gaudreau, Kachuk, Lindholm line in Calgary. Moved to the Vancouver Canucks this past season. Didn't have a good one. It was a disappointing one for Elias Lindholm, but he's a fantastic forward, and you know that skill set's there, and he's going to warrant a lot of money wherever he goes. So a lot of guys that a lot of guys that had weird years, I would say. The best one being Sam Reinhart, who I do think goes back to the Florida Panthers. Steven Stamkos, I don't see him ever leaving Tampa, but if he does, it gets weird. And then just, a Jonathan Marchessault, who's a 40-goal scorer, could definitely warrant a lot of money wherever he goes. A guy like Matt Duchene, who has been a fantastic player all of his career, a perennial all-star in this league, can get a lot of money. So I think it's a very deep free agency class, is what I would say. There is a lot of guys that look very good. Of course, you're not looking at any of the RFAs, although Matthew Beniers is an RFA, but he'll, of course, be re-signed by the time. Kirill Marchenko's an RFA. He'll, of course, be re-signed by the time. But for these UFAs, if a team is unable to re-sign them, I don't think the Vancouver Canucks will try to re-sign Elias Lindholm, for example. He'll be there on the market. And, of course, when we do get a final list to look at, I will talk to you guys about where, I'm hearing that they could end up. But for right now, there are a lot of names to look out for in this re-signing phase. Steven Stamkos, probably the biggest one. Sam Reinhart having the most points this past season, and 57-goal scorer. He's an interesting one to look out for, what the Florida Panthers give him, as I would be shocked if he doesn't re-sign in Florida, as that team seems like it really wants to play together. But for the free agency class, it looks really good, it looks really deep, and it looks like you can do a lot with it if you're a new GM looking to, bolster a team fast. There are a lot of teams kind of out there that are in that kind of should be in win now mode with, what they've done in previous years, but just aren't because their guys haven't stepped up. I'm looking at kind of like the Ottawa Senators, the New York Islanders, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Detroit Red Wings. All of these teams that should be doing good, especially in the Eastern Conference, but just are underperforming. So we'll see what they do, and we'll see who does resign. But that'll wrap it up for our third segment of the night. When I come back, we'll be talking about Connor McDavid breaking Wayne Gretzky's record, what that means, and if he needs to break more for this Edmonton Oilers team to win a Stanley Cup Final.